We're live on Facebook. Magic.
You're live.
I'm live and I'm awake and I feel great.
Awesome. What time is it there in Australia?
It is about, I'm going to say 9 a.m. here in Australia on Tuesday morning. So I'm actually speaking to you from the future.
From the future. Tell me about the future, Chris. What is it like to be in the future with your voice?
Well, so far there's been coffee and there's been an awesome telecall with Gary Douglas. So really, it's looking up.
It's looking up. I love that. So, okay. So I went on live before we started just to kind of invite people to this creation today. And one of the questions that came up was how you found Right Voice. Like, how did you find access? What do we need to know about Chris Hughes that we don't already know? What's the story here?
Well, that can be a really long or short story, but basically all my life, I've had this knack of being in the right place at the right time. I'm sure that sounds familiar to a lot of people out there. I had zero intention of becoming a Right Voice for You facilitator. And I had zero intention of becoming an access consciousness facilitator until I was introduced to the tools of it. And then I went, give it to me. I want it now. Yes, exactly. And that was that. But essentially, Gary Douglas created Right Voice for You as one of the specialties in Access with, for those of you who don't know, within the hub of Access Consciousness, we have all these specialty classes that help people facilitate different areas of their life. And Right Voice for You started to become a class that wasn't what he saw it could be and what he had meant it to be. It had started to become about performing and about sounding good. And he went, no, this is not what this is. This is not what it's meant to be. It is not ever about fixing a problem or about learning how to do anything better. See, and I'm really excited that you asked me to be on this show this morning, Sarah, because being you and having the right voice or Right Voice for You have so much in common from the way I facilitate it. It is what it's become, and what it is now is it's about being willing to be anything, basically, and not having a definition of who and what you are and what you're capable of, and just relaxing into having a good time with whoever you choose to be today.
I love that so much, because then you get to show up organically however you want to show up today, and you're not controlled by the past or how everybody else wants you to show up today, because how you showed up yesterday. Which brings me to something you said in just a moment ago, was Right Voice for You is not about fixing a problem, as is Access, because there are no problems, possibilities, you're not wrong, all of that. But can you, from Chris's voice, talk to me about that, about what a lot of people go to find classes to change their life because they perceive a problem. So what is having your voice and being you, like, get you to the place of like, hey, we're not here to fix problems? Because that's a whole nother spectrum that people don't even ever know they can function from.
Yeah, totally. For me personally, in my life, the areas that I thought I needed to fix or that I had the biggest issue with, they were also what I realized they were the excuses that I was using to not get out there and to not show up as me. I had decided I was too fat, and the fact that I was gay made me a little unpalatable to people, and that I would always have to overcome that or make an excuse for it and tone it down a little, don't be too like flaming and out there, and try and lose as much weight or look the way you think you should so that people would receive me better. And when you walk around with those judgments and you try and fix those problems, it's like shouting them at everybody through a megaphone. It's like you've curled up a piece of cardboard and you're going, hey, don't look over here. I'm the fat gay guy. Yeah, me. That's me. Fat and gay. Yeah. Trying not to be that, but really it's what I am. It's all about proving something. And when I actually started doing these classes, the greatest freedom that it created for me was not trying to fix that anymore. And in fact, going, do you know what? If I'm that, let's lean into it. Let's like go for it. Let's buy Elton John sunglasses.
How much did you have to get out of the judgment of those things? Like just naturally choosing that. And then like what we always say in Access is like, is what if every wrongness of you is a strongness of you? So you go into the places where you thought, you know, oh, I'm going to be judged. This is the wrong thing about me. But then you turn them into what is your strength and what is actually your invitation. And I've seen you do it. I enjoy every time you go to a mic in the class, because we all know we're going to end up laughing, which is my brand, which I love, is like, if you get me to laugh, I'm like, open, I'm yours. Let's do this. So can you tell me a little bit about, so you told me about gay, you told me about too fat to do this. Can you tell me what leaning into those things? Because what some people might say is like, oh, then you're, like you said, like lean in, but lean in what way? Lean in not hiding, lean in, and how do you use it to create with?
Yeah, well, basically, I look at all the places where I'm trying to avoid that and go,
Okay.
all right. So the one question that I use, or tool that I use all the time with this, is if I realize that I'm trying to avoid something, or that I'm trying to prove that I'm not that thing, I look at it and I go, if I was that, what's the worst thing that would happen? And I was like, oh, like I used to get annoyed going shopping because I would want to go to all these really fancy stores and buy clothes. And I'd be like, oh, they don't actually carry my size. And then I looked at it and I went, so what's the worst thing here about this? Oh no, I'm going to have everything tailored.
Shucks.
Damn, I guess I'll have to make more money.
I'm going to use that. That's an incredible tool. Because also it pulls, because what I watch a lot of people do, like in classes, when they'll present a problem, if you pull the problem out and you see that like the worst thing that could happen is that you have to get things tailored. Or I had someone the other day say, so if I don't create it, or the end result isn't what they're asking for, then I won't make the money. I'm like, so what you're telling me is if you don't go, you don't make the money. And if you go, you might not make the money. So what's the chance of, like, the worst thing that could happen is that you end up right where you are right now. So like, what are we doing here? So I love that so much. And thank you for your vulnerability with that, because what you're speaking to about like the things that stopped you before are a lot of the things that we are still hiding. And so your willingness to even come on and be like, I thought it was this, I thought it was that, is what using the tools gets to create. You get to go on Facebook Live and talk about it and make fun of it, right? And yeah. So I'm curious though, like, so what I see a lot of people do is see these tools and then they're going to go use them like to facilitate with, or to create a class with, or to, can you share about like a time, so you're talking about shopping, but are there other times when even like in creation with Access or anything like that, things come up and you have to look at them and then still find your voice?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll be totally honest. The social media historically has not been my favorite thing. I would do anything to avoid having to get on a Facebook Live or put out a video or make a meme or post things, because I was just like, oh, I hate doing this. That was my excuse anyway. And again, looking at it from the point of view of what's the worst thing that could happen? People are going to judge you. Oh, well. They're going to judge you anyway. You might as well just go and have fun with it. And so that has really facilitated me with my business and my business as a facilitator, and just having more freedom to show up. Like now I'm willing to enter the room singing or doing whatever. Like I just don't have such an investment in what people think anymore and what their reaction will be. Because the greatest thing and freedom I've achieved is I have stopped being result oriented.
Say more, my friend.
Well,
say more.
A lot of people judge themselves, and one of the biggest sources of judgment for a lot of people is they judge themselves based on their creations or based on the result they created. and anybody who is out there who is a facilitator of consciousness, I'm sure they've had the experience of walking away from a class going, wow, people could have had so much more. And as soon as you do that, you negate everything you did create by looking at what you didn't create. And that is the source. People don't tell you this, but that is the greatest source of lack that most people function from. Always looking at what isn't and never looking at what is.
I'm super excited about this because this is something I've been saying, that I'm saying it in a different way, but is that acknowledgement as the superpower. Because this thing about it, we're always like, if you take what you want to look at is the glass is half empty, or what didn't get created, or what results didn't come through that you had projected at, that if you would have not had your projections and expectations, you could actually receive more of what you did create. But acknowledging the things that did get created just changes your whole point of view, which changes your reality. But you said something about receiving judgment that I've had so many questions come up, saying like, Sarah, how is it that you're okay to walk in a room and be judged or not be judged, be rejected? And it is this thing of like being me, this, like, I always say, like, firing on all cylinders. You can't, like, when I'm firing on all cylinders, like, I don't care if you're throwing tomatoes from the front row, like, I'm having a good time and there's no like taking me out of that. So, and how would you describe what it's like to receive judgment and not make it real?
Well, to receive judgment and not make it real, you just have to, the key there is allowance. It's just acknowledging it for what it is, not trying to twist it into something positive or see the bright side of the judgment. It's just going, oh, cool, that's that. I live here in Australia and we have a lot of snakes and spiders. So snakes and spiders can bite and some of them can kill you. Does that make them wrong?
No.
Nope, they're just snakes and spiders. Just like the people in your life that judge you positively and negatively. Are they wrong for judging? Nope. Is their judgment wrong? Nope, just is. And that's the beauty of allowance. Allowance is where everything is an interesting point of view. And allowance really opens the door to receiving. And once you're willing to just receive, the judgments become irrelevant. They are simply energy.
Yes. Keep going. Simply energy. Simply energy.
Yeah. I mean, probably the most beautiful and concise definition I've heard of receiving recently was Gary Douglas talking about receiving as you get this massive download of information. You get all the good stuff that you've decided you like, and you get all the bad stuff that you've decided you don't like. And true choice is when you get all that information and you get to look at the whole picture, not just this side, but all of it. And from there, have choices. And those choices that you make are what creates your future. But if you're only willing to make choices that create your future based on what you've defined as good, there's a whole world of possibility you're not seeing. And there's a whole part of being you're avoiding, because you will never make choices based on what you've decided you aren't.
Someone write that down. You will never make choices based on what you've decided you aren't. That's awesome. And speaking of choice, so what can we talk about that will share the story of when something doesn't go right and how we can have gratitude for the thing that didn't go right or didn't go how you planned? Like, say, getting up and singing and you were off key, or getting up and doing a speech and you forgot your lines, or whatever that is. Like, what I've been seeing in my own life is, like, if I can go to gratitude that thing happened, I have now a totally different menu of things I can choose from, because I can know, like, more about what created it or how I'd like to choose different or whatever. But trying to avoid it completely actually puts me in more like resistance to what's possible. So what have you seen in the Right Voice for You classes where people break through that and see that all of it is part of creation and choice?
Well, what you're kind of describing to me is the pursuit a lot of us fall into or have had of trying to be perfect. And what I've seen people discover in classes is when they're not trying to be perfect, when they allow themselves to say they get up on stage to make an announcement and maybe their leg shakes. What people have discovered time and time again is the more they are vulnerable with whatever shows up, and the more allowance they have of themselves and gratitude for whatever they choose, the more interesting they actually start to become, more charismatic and more magnetic. Because when you stop having a judgment of you and you just show up as you, people go, huh, who's that? It's your lack of point of view that draws people to you. It's not the perfection of doing it well. And that's what we kind of started this conversation with. People think they're going to learn how to do it well, but that's so alienating. The plastic nature of that is what people go, ugh. There's no presence there. There's no being. It's, you described it as firing at all cylinders. When you're really firing at all cylinders and don't give a shit about whether you get it right or not, you're just out there and having fun. And that's what people respond to.
The fun and being you, the fun and having your voice. Absolutely. And then they're drawn to, it's funny because some of the, I've like tripped off stages before, and I feel like have had more like response to my way to revive from that, or like to come up and be like, hey, that's me, rather than trying to like pretend like it didn't happen or be perfect or be, the porcelain makeup of whatever everybody else's judgments are of how I show up. So in playing with the being you, like it unlocks this place where you can start to shed all the judgments that you've bought as real and true of you, the stories and all of those things. And then when I took the Right Voice for You class, so having these two things converge tonight, I would love to look at how, like, what goes on in a Right Voice for You class that we can play with tonight that's like fun. And if you want to share some of the things with me, I would love to share with people how much fun that is in that class, because I know what I know about being you, and I've gone to one Right Voice for You class. And I also know that the space that you be with the Right Voice is super exciting. And I think you're one of my favorite goofballs. So I'm wondering what goofball you can invite me to be tonight or today or this morning. That would create that vulnerability, because I think that's the other key. The vulnerability that you're willing to be when you're not trying to be perfect is such an invitation.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing of what the classes create is that fun. There's so much relaxation in not trying to be right. When you're just like, okay, if I was doing this just to have a good time and not to get it right or not to elicit a response, but just to have some fun, what could I create? And have a look at, I invite anybody who's listening to this to have a look at in their life all the choices that they're making to try and get a response, and all the choices they're not making for fear of being refused.
Oh, yes. And does that go back to proving? Would you
Yep.
say that goes back to proving?
It goes back to everything you think you can't be and everything you've decided you are that you actually aren't.
Okay, so in my Right Voice for You class, I got up and sang, and it's funny because we clear all these places where like you bought something about your voice or whatever. Like I had an experience in elementary school where I was called by name to go audition, like specifically for the singing part in this play. And I was so excited. And I got in and I sang like 3 notes, and the teacher stopped the pianist and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We called the wrong Sarah. We want the other Sarah." And right then, like I could never sing again. And no, I could never sing again, whatever, pock and pod. But like I thought that I didn't have a singing voice. And so I just wouldn't sing out loud. And so to get up on stage and clear that, and did I hit every note? Absolutely not. Did I forget the lines? Absolutely not. I mean, absolutely yes. But since then, since just clearing that point of view of something that stuck me about my singing voice, and not to say that Right Voice for You is all about singing, but that's what I chose and as my like activity in the class. The vulnerability that it took to stand up there and do that has now got me to a place where I'm singing again, but I'm not going to go record an album, but I have the space of not being so fearful of the judgment and of not getting it right, and have more like fluidity with me and my voice, which I never would have even, I hadn't thought about that situation when I was a kid for like ever. It just kind of showed up as it does in class. Can you share with our friends, I keep trying to go back to this thing, but like what is in the class? Like, what does the class look like? I know they're not all the same. I know that, but I would love for people to know that it's not about like, you don't have to get up and sing if you don't want to. You don't have a speech you have to go memorize. It's not Toastmasters. You don't have to count how many times you say I did that when I was younger too. You don't, as I say um, anyways, like those are all things that trying to get it right looks like. And so we have this class called Right Voice for You. So what is that? If we're not trying to get it right, what is that, Chris?
That is the voice that shows up when you have allowance for you for it to be whatever it is.
Wow.
Instead of what you've decided it is, and instead of what you've defined it as. See, the thing is, the way I look at it as, you've got a couple voices. You've got the voice and the sound that your body makes. And if you want to know something really weird, if you didn't have a head, you'd actually sound just like a dolphin. Just you'd be, and then you have a voice in the world.
I want to know how you know that, or why you know that. Why do you know that?
I did an undergraduate degree in voice.
Okay.
I studied voice. It's where you go to get the most points of view about what a voice is university. But so you have this physical voice, and that's the one that your body has, and that's the one that most people seem to have a problem with. But you actually have, whether you are a singer or whether you're an accountant, you have a voice in the world with who you be and what you create and the choices that you make. And when I do Right Voice classes, no singing is required. And we have had plenty of classes where no one has sung, because it's not about that. We do look at what your creative output is, what you are communicating, what you are being in the world, and all of your reasons and justifications for why you think you can't. And we start to address those and unlock them, because like your experience as a kid, a lot of us have come to these decisions about what our voice is and what it isn't. And what I do is start to challenge people's perceptions and their definitions of what that is, and allow it to unlock and be whatever it is. The thing is, from my point of view, your body has these innate capacities to express joy through dancing, through exercise, through sex, through singing, through speaking, through communicating with other people. And I look at those areas and I ask people, so if you were having your voice right now, because it can change, what would you like people to hear? Because truly, people who are truly great as facilitators, as speakers, as singers, as storytellers, they're not doing it just to be something for themselves. So have you ever heard a singer that sings to feel good? And you can tell they're really enjoying the sound of their own voice, but there's like nothing in it for anybody else. I look at it as, what if you sang or wrote or spoke or put anything out into the world for what it creates in the world, including you, but not just you?
Does that change your voice? Like your actual voice, if you're doing it?
Yeah. The one thing that I know that will actually change your physical voice is when you change the place from which it comes. And those who are truly willing to have and be greatness will have and be a great voice in the world in more ways than one.
I'm like being facilitated and also excited to keep talking.
Yay!
Yay! Well, two, I just was looking at like where we decide we don't have a voice if we've bought that no one's listening.
Yeah.
So like even like Facebook Lives, like how many of us are looking at, you know, the numbers and how many people are on right now. And I know like even for me, it comes up if when I start a Facebook Live and there's no one on and I'm just talking to myself, and that place of like, oh, should I just stop? Should I just not say anything? No one's listening to me anyways, and have that limit what you say or what you're willing to say because you've decided no one's listening. And what is that that you can speak to as far as is it a projection expectation of an audience, or
again, that's the lack that most people function from only looking at what isn't and not what is. So what I would do is I would always ask, what future am I creating that I haven't acknowledged?
Acknowledgement again.
Yeah,
Acknowledgement for the
you got to stop looking at what isn't and what is. You know, when I first started facilitating classes, there would be 3-4 people there. And I had a freak out about it. And I called Gary Douglas and I said, this isn't working. I'm obviously a bad facilitator. No one is coming to my classes. And he said, how long have you been doing it? And I said, 8 months. And he went, great. Call me back in a year. And I did. And he said, so now what's happening? And I went, oh, now it's tripled. And he went, call me back in a year. You've got to stop looking at what isn't and be grateful for whatever shows up and keep on going from there.
How much do we
choice.
like? Yeah, I was just going to say that I've seen a lot of people like cancel a class because like and not to say we can't cancel classes. I'm not making that wrong, but I'm just like, if we started to look for what was going to be created rather than like the numbers matching the like the input, matching the output, matching like all these measurements, but of just like what gift it is going to be in the world. And what I started to do too is, and I'm grateful to get to acknowledge this right now, is like, look at how if I cancel this class, that isn't going to create financially, but it is going to create me as a greater facilitator. How much am I limiting what shows up and what's possible for that year phone call, you know, to get to the classes that you desire to create. So from that space of acknowledgement again. So we have some things here that I'd like to read to you.
Super.
Oh, there's so many awesome comments. So this last one says, what if you seeing only for seeing what that creates in the world and that it is creating, including you, but not just for you? Oh, that was maybe a comment quote. Cassie would like to know what it's like at Right Voice for You Certified Facilitator training. So what do you see it? So can we talk a little bit about that as specialty facilitators, both of us? Like what does being a Right Voice for You gift to you in your other classes, a Right Voice for You facilitator gift to you in your other classes that like maybe CFs don't know? It's like just another class to facilitate, or, you know, whatever points of view are limiting their choice to come play.
Yeah, look, I was lucky enough to facilitate a couple of the facilitators training classes with Gary Douglas, and the people that chose to come along, there was a whole lot of people that came because, oh, they wanted to do with Gary while it was his last one, quote unquote. Everyone came away with such a different perspective of how they could have a voice in the world. Again, so far beyond their physical voice, but the people that came along that have a background in sales and marketing were like, whoa, this given me a totally different perspective of how I can reach people and what I'm actually saying with my business that I'm not acknowledging. And I've never looked at before. Because for all of us who become facilitators, I know for me, and I've spoken to others, they do all the steps to become a facilitator and actually have their license, but then they have to look at, oh wait, now I have to build a business and actually get my voice out there and be in the world in a way that people can engage with me and I can create a future with this. And this facilitator class that we are doing next month in Noosa in particular, that is one thing that we're looking at. And we've actually opened that class up to people who've never taken a right voice class before, so that we can have the conversations around getting the tools of access and the tools that create consciousness out into the world, so that we can be seen, we can be heard. Because the one thing I know is now is the time, more than ever, for us to stand up and be seen without excuse, without hiding, just with total presence and total vulnerability. And I know a lot of people have always acknowledged me in the past for my capacity to be present and engaging and funny, whatever. And I do that with no point of view. And that's what I would like to invite people to. And that's what Facilitators class is going to be about. Encouraging people to have the charisma and the vivid presence that is possible when you have no point of view of how and if you're being received.
So many gems here, Chris. And the chat's blowing up and everybody's super excited. So Cassie says, oh, what am I saying with my business? That was the question I was going to ask. So it's funny that we're sharing a brain yet again. The question was, so we have our voice, then we have a creation, whether it be a particular class or our facilitation business. And where is it that creation or that class has a voice and we have to fuel that? Or is it that our voice is going through our business? Like, I'm genuinely in wonderment here of like what you know about that, because I know, like, I've created classes, like we'll give them themes. Like I just did a money class in Wall Street on the financial district in the financial district in New York. Interesting choice. And it created a lot, and everybody's money shit was up. And I'm like, what other voice can I give this class that permeates that? And exactly what needed to show up showed up. People had so much change with money, and it was super fucking cool. But where are we not infusing that into our business? Like, it's like all in here and not in the creation. Like, can you speak to that just a little bit for me?
Well,
even not for these 80 people.
Yeah, no, again, the thing is, you got to make it not about you so much, but recognize that when you're creating anything with your business, it involves you, it involves the people you engage with, and it involves the future. And probably the best thing that I've discovered about having the right voice is learning how to listen. And going, okay, business, what do you require? What do you desire? And where do you wish to go?
So when I plan a right voice for you class, my business gets more of a voice. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, well, one of the stories Gary Douglas tells all the time is about a lady who came to one of his right voice classes who had a very somewhat strange and unpleasant sounding voice. And throughout the course of the class, her voice didn't necessarily sound much better, but she had more allowance for it. And in her job as a salesperson, her sales tripled over the coming weeks, 40%. I said tripled, didn't I? They went up.
Up is
I got
up.
it wrong.
I didn't even catch it, so.
Well, maybe I said it in my head. Anyway, what people have noticed, I mean, the examples are numerous of the conversations that people are willing to have after attending these classes, the things they're willing to ask for once they start to have a sense of ease with their voice and go, you know what? I actually am valuable in the world and I can ask for things. And regardless of whether anyone says yes, me being willing to ask is a gift.
Absolutely. And ask questions of you, ask questions of what you like to create, and then ask for what you like to receive as well. How many of us aren't even willing to ask because we've already decided that we can't receive it, or no one's listening? Again, the universe is listening to everybody but me. Okay. So do you want to, what are the requirements for, so you already said for the right voice class in NUSA that anybody can attend? You have to be a CF? You don't have to be
any CF can attend.
Okay. Any CF can attend.
BFs can attend online and listen, but they can't actually ask questions. So if you just desire the information, you are welcome to attend online. But for CFs, you can come and be there in the class. If you're going to be here in Australia for the Access CF class, it's just 2 days later in the same place, and anybody can attend on audio from anywhere in the world, and there will be translation for some of the people that require it if we have enough of you in your language. But we really want to open this up to as many people who actually desire the information, so that we can contribute to them having their voice in the world.
Awesome. I can't wait to get to Australia. And we'll put the link for the class or the event in here after, unless someone else has it handy that's listening that can put it in. Is there any last minute questions? Let me see if there's anything here in the chat. There's a lot of acknowledgement and a lot of gratitude. So I invite you to go back and look at the chat, Chris.
Yay.
Oh, Ashley, thank you, Ashley. So she put in the place to register. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Sure. I'd like people to ask themselves, if I was having my voice today, what could I ask for that I've never been willing to have before?
Thank you for that. I'm going to run that one on myself as well. And thank you for joining me today. And thank you for being awesome. And thank you for inviting me to contribute to creating more, and for all of the nuggets of consciousness you just delivered. Super great.
Nuggets.
Little nuggets.
Are they better with ketchup?
I was thinking gold nuggets when I look at you. I'm not thinking about chicken nuggets.
Hey, you know, you can take things a lot of different ways. It's the gift of language.
You can. And ketchup and whatever other dipping sauces you enjoy.
You could put ketchup on your gold.
You could. I'm pretty sure if I walked around with ketchup on my gold, you would probably be like, "Sir, what are you doing? Come on."
Be like, girlfriend, you need to clean that up.
Oh, don't think I didn't clean these before I got on with you. I'm just saying. Don't think I did not go straight up to Jewel. Because I did. I know my audience. All right, I adore you, and I will see you soon. And thank you so much for you.
Thank you for you. It's been a wonder.
See you soon.
Bye.